On behalf of IOT Academy, I welcome you all for the first session of National Level Faculty Development Program on National Education Policy 2020. Let me introduce the resource person of today's session, Dr. Isha Rawal. Dr. Isha Rawal, a seasoned professional, is working as an associate professor and IQAC coordinator with Vivekananda Institute of Professional Studies, Delhi. Dr. Rawal has over 15 years of experience in the academic and corporate world. Her qualifications include BCom, MBA Finance, and PhD in Management. Dr. Rawal has chaired many technical sessions and has presented scholarly papers at various national and international conferences held at eminent institutes like IIT Kharagpur and IIT Roorkee. Her talks on quality enhancement are widely acknowledged. Her patents, titled Offline Reminder Device for Employees and a System and Method Providing Innovative Development of the Financial Market, has been published in the Indian Patent Office Journal. Dr. Rawal was selected as one of the 100 eminent academicians of 2021 by International Institute of Organized Research India for her remarkable contribution in the field of academics. She was conferred Best Teacher Award for her distinguished service as a teacher in 2017. With this, I hand over the session to Dr. Isha Rawal. Ma'am, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for this overwhelming introduction, I would say. A very good afternoon to all the participants. I welcome you all to this introductory session on National Education Policy 2020. Before I begin this session, I would actually like to congratulate IOT Academy for organizing sessions on such pertinent issues and such topics which are so important for all the teaching fraternity. All of us are here, we all are teachers, and these topics are really important for us, so that we need to be updated on such topics. And in fact, all the academic leaders, we need to know what is happening in the industry, what's new coming up. The topic for today's presentation, as I share my screen, is on, we'll be discussing how NEP has evolved. What was it which led to the introduction of NEP, how it got into the system. So I have shared my screen. If you can see the screen, can any one of you please confirm? I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am, it is visible, ma'am.
Okay, so I have chosen the topic as metamorphosis of the higher education system in India. And if I look at the word metamorphosis, the literal meaning of this specific word means is the evolution of the process of transformation from an immature state to an adult form. And that is how the higher education system in India is likely to evolve. From the past 34, 36 years, there has been no change. We are sitting on the same pedagogy, we are sitting on the same system. And with the introduction of this NEP, this entire system is in for a complete overhaul. So we are sure that this new policy will actually revamp the higher education system in India, and it will get in a lot of changes which are very positive, which will have good impact on the not only the urban areas, but even the rural areas. So as I move forward, before we actually start discussing on what is the NEP and what are the major features of NEP with respect to the higher education sector in India, and let us understand what actually triggered the introduction of this new education policy. If you look at the screen, there are 17 SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, which were given by the United Nations. And as I read them out, the first one being no poverty, the second is zero hunger, then we have good health and well-being, and goal number 4, which is SDG 4, that is quality education. Now, this is one goal which was adopted by India way back in 2015. The other goals are gender equality, clean water and sanitation. We have affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry innovation and infrastructure, so on and so forth. So if you look at all of these 17 goals, the main focus of India has been one goal which has actually been adopted by India was quality education, that is SDG 4. So as per the document of, if you look at the document of NEP 2020, it seeks to reconfigure the entire education system to support as well as foster the learning to achieve the critical targets as well as the goals of SDG 4 of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Okay, so this was adopted, this process started way back in 2015. The global agenda seeks to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and also to promote lifelong learning opportunities for everybody by 2030. Now, if I look at the goal for the target, there are different target points of this specific SDG 4, which are categorized into formal education system, then they are addressing the skills, and then what are the flanking measures which the government is going to take. There are 10 target goals as I read them. The first one is that by 2030, United Nations stated that we need to ensure that all the girls as well as boys, they complete free, equitable and quality primary and secondary education, leading to relevant and effective learning outcomes. These days, when we talk about any subject, any course which is there, we always focus on the outcomes. Because these days, if you look at even the education methodology, we are following OB, the outcome-based education. So we need to ensure that whatever the students are learning, that there is a specific outcome which is told to them beforehand, and the students are aware that once they study this course, once they study this subject, what is it which they are going to achieve. The second target point for goal number 4 was that by 2030, we need to ensure that all the girls and boys, why are we saying girls and boys? Because it is a gender neutral policy, gender neutral target. They have access to quality early childhood development, care, and pre-primary education so that they are ready for primary education. Next one was that by 2030, we need to ensure equal access for all women and men to affordable and quality technical, vocational and tertiary education, including university. For fourth one was that by 2030, substantially we need to increase the number of youth and adults to have relevant skills, including technical and vocational skills for employment, decent jobs, and entrepreneurship. The next is by 2030, the fifth one, that gender, we need to eliminate all the gender disparities in education and ensure equal access to all levels of education and vocational training for the vulnerable, including persons with disabilities, because there is a lot of discrimination against people who are differently abled. I will not even use the word disabled, they are differently abled, indigenous peoples and children in vulnerable situations. So there's a lot of disparity, and this SDG 4 actually focuses on removing, eliminating all these disparities. The next one was that by 2030, we need to ensure that all the youth and a substantial proportion of adults, both men as well as women, they achieve literacy as well as numeracy. Because the literacy rate is pretty high if you look at the world statistics. That is why this specific point was taken up. By 2030, and we need to ensure that all learners acquire the knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development, including among others through education for sustainable development and sustainable lifestyles, human rights, gender equality, promotion of a culture of peace and non-violence, global citizenship and appreciation of cultural diversity, and of culture's contribution to sustainable development. So all in all, our focus is on ensuring quality education, that too in a sustainable way, without gender disparities, without any sort of inequalities. There were three sections if you look at the goal 4. The first section is which says that build and upgrade educational facilities that are child, disabled and gender sensitive and provide safe, non-violent, inclusive and effective learning environments for all. So by 2030, so we need to substantially expand globally the number of scholarships available to developing countries in particular, as well as the least developed countries. And then there was, apart from the scholarship, the financial portion of it, the last thing which this specific goal targets is that by 2030, we need to substantially increase the supply of qualified teachers. The main system, I would say, the route from where the education is flowing, including through international cooperation for teacher training. So here comes the role of collaborations in developing countries, and the special focus would be on least developed nations and the countries, including the small islands. It is to point out that NEP 2020 has made an attempt to revamp and refurbish the country's educational system as a way to participate in the global agenda. So this policy has come down to India from the global perspective, because India wants to participate in SDG 4, and that is why it picked up this goal and tried to revamp the entire education system in India. So there are different sections. The first one is where we're talking about the early childhood school education. But in this session, we'll be focusing on the higher education session. Now, let us see how it has evolved. As I was just discussing, so the journey started way back in the year 2015. The government had initiated the process of formulating a new education policy through the consultative process for an inclusive, participatory, and holistic approach, which takes into consideration expert opinions, field experiences, empirical research, stakeholder feedback, as well as lessons learned from best practices. So this is a consultative approach, and thus it was recommended that a time-bound, bottom-up consultative process is undertaken, which will be driven by a multi-stakeholder task force at the national level. So it all started at the national level, and then it went down to the Gram Panchayats, and the feedback was taken in ensuring that the feedback from all the stakeholders is coming. And then there was an agency which was collecting this feedback. All this started way back in the year 2015. This approach actually enabled the Ministry of Human Resource Development to reach out to individuals across the country through over 2.75 lakhs direct consultations, and they also took the input from citizens online. The process was both offline as well as online, that involved nearly over 2.25 lakh suggestions. So when they introduced this way back in 2015, and this process when this initiated, the government was in a position to gather information from, or inputs, I would say, suggestions, views, expert opinions from as many as 2.25 lakhs citizens of India. The MHRD initiated this unprecedented, collaborative, inclusive, and highly participative consultation process in the month of January 2015. Then in May 2016, a committee for evolution of the new education policy was created, and this was created under the chairmanship of late Shri TSR Subramaniam, who happened to be the former cabinet secretary, and this committee was formed and they submitted its report. And based on the report submitted by this committee, the ministry prepared some inputs for the draft national education policy, and they named it as Draft National Education Policy 2016. Now, when this policy was put in place in June 2017, so a year from then, another committee for the draft national education policy was constituted under the chairmanship of eminent scientist, and his name was Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan, which submitted the draft national education policy 2019. So they actually worked on the policy, which was submitted in 2016. And then the work went on for another 2 years. And this policy was submitted to the Honorable Human Resource Development Minister on the 31st of May 2019. So you can see that how the process started and how it the changes, the inputs were taken, and then the policy has been evolving. So the Draft National Education Policy 2019, which was prepared, it was first uploaded on MHRD's website, and as well as on there was a portal by the name of MyGov Innovate. This portal, and they requested views, suggestions, and comments of stakeholders at all the levels. So everybody was free to put across their suggestions across the country, and post submission of the draft reports by the states, the union territories, governments, and Government of India ministries, they all gave their views and their comments, their suggestions on draft education policy. A brief report of it was prepared, and it was circulated amongst all the stakeholders after incorporating these suggestions. And this report was actually translated into 22 different languages so that everybody can read it, understand it, and can give their inputs. And this final report converted into 22 languages was uploaded on the ministry's website. So this is the entire journey of National Education Policy 2020. Many of us till now get confused. What is the full form of NEP if I put it across? Many a times I hear that it's New Education Policy. The actual full form is actually National Education Policy. It is new, that is why we say it's New National Education Policy 2020. So after 6 years of consideration and a steady review, the NEP 2020 was approved by the Union Cabinet on 29th of July 2020. making way for large-scale transformational qualitative reforms in education through NEP, this specific policy. Now, this policy is actually replaced, as I was saying, 34 years old national education policy. And this policy was given way back in 1986. So after 1986, there has been no change. There has been no transformation in the education system. We are still sitting on the same system, same sort of accreditation, same sort of regulatory framework. And there was a dire need of this new education policy. So you can say that after a gap of 34 years, this policy came into picture. Now, this is the first education policy of the 21st century, and it aims to address the many growing developmental imperatives of our country. There are a lot of issues, a lot of impediments on the way, a lot of high targets. It actually visions to revamp the entire system, and it proposes to revision as well as revamp all the aspects of the education structure, including its regulation, as I was saying, its governance, and it aims to create a new structure, a new system that is aligned with the aspirational goals of the 21st century education, including with special reference to our SDG 4, that is Sustainable Development Goal 4, while building upon India's traditions as well as value systems. So we want to be modern, we want to be contemporary, we want to be at par with the goals and targets of United Nations as stated as it says SDG 4. But at the same time, India, because it is known as the Vishwa Guru, India has always known because of its universities like Nalanda, Takshila. Because of such university, India has been known as the Vishwa Guru. And that is why even in NEP, there is a lot of emphasis on Indian traditions, value systems, and we do not want to do away with our basic Sanskrit language. We do not want to do away with our traditions. That is why this NEP incorporates both the traditional, the aspects of our Indian system with emphasis on traditions and value systems, as well as it is adopting the new high-tech methods as proposed by the United Nations. So having said this, let us have a look at the revamp suggested by NEP 2020 in the higher education. This slide actually discusses about the key points from the draft document which was circulated. And if you look at it, there are different things which have been proposed under this policy. It actually starts from point number 9. If you talk about the higher education, the first 8 points actually deal with the early childhood and the school education. And when we move to point number 9, it starts with the higher education. So which says that we need to have quality colleges as well as universities and HEIs. Then there needs to be institutional restructuring and consolidation. We need to move towards a more holistic approach. We have to have a holistic and multidisciplinary education. We have to have optimal learning environments. That the students must be supported. The faculty must be trained and motivated. There is a lot of emphasis on teacher education, then professional courses, vocational courses. They have given special emphasis on promoting high quality research, and they are in this policy, they are even talking about that the teachers, the faculty who are doing research at a great level with a high impact, they must be rewarded, they must be promoted. So there has to be a fast track promotion system for such faculty members. Then they are talking about effective governance and leadership. There is a lot of emphasis on transforming the regulatory system, promotion of Indian languages, as I was saying, the art, the culture, the values, tradition, and finally, the technology use and integration. But how can we integrate technology in the higher education system? Now, as far as this session is concerned, because we are limited with time and we just have 1 hour to complete this presentation, I would say the session, the introductory session. So we will be discussing, there are 6 pointers which I'll be focusing on from the NEP 2020. The first one is quality universities and colleges, then institutional restructuring and consolidation. Then how can we move towards a more holistic and multidisciplinary education and why it is important to have it? Then optimal learning environments and supports for students. Then we have motivated, energized, and capable faculty. How can we retain? How can we recruit? How can we promote such faculty? Then equity and inclusion in higher education. And last is the teacher education. Now, teacher education, again, we'll be studying or we'll be understanding more from the perspective of higher education than the school system. So as we start, let us see the first one, which is quality universities and colleges. Now, when we use the word quality these days, there's a lot of emphasis on the word quality. The first thing which comes to our mind the moment we hear the word quality is NAC. Because NAC, these days, it is mandatory for every HEI to be NAC accredited. And in time, if you want to convert your institution into a university, again, you have to be NAC. If the students want to apply for any sort of scholarship, again, the institution has to be NAC accredited. So that is why NAC has been laying emphasis. The moment we hear the word quality universities and colleges, we actually kind of remind ourselves and we can remember that, okay, there's an agency by the name of NAC, and they are going to accredit, they are going to vet, they are going to certify the quality of our system. But as far as the NEP is concerned, they are actually citing reasons that what is the necessity of having quality? Because the current higher education system is engrossed with multiple problems, few of which I have just listed here. Let us look at the current existing problems and then why there is a need to move towards quality universities, why there is a need to revamp this existing structure. So the first problem which I have written here is the fragmented higher educational ecosystem. When we say that it is fragmented, that means we are currently, in fact, I would not say fragmented, I will say severely fragmented. There is demarcation, we do departmentalization. The system is not very smooth, it is very much fragmented, divided into divisions, and it is not so open. We cannot opt from one post to the other, we cannot pursue. Now with the introduction of NEP, of course, we can take up credits even if we are pursuing NSS, even if we are taking up NCC, you get credit for it. But otherwise, the previous system was highly fragmented. The second issue is that there's less emphasis on the development of cognitive skills and learning outcomes. The third issue is that there is a rigid separation of disciplines. So with early specialization as well as streaming of students into narrow areas of study, we are very, very particular. We are very rigid when it comes to discipline. So if somebody is doing a specialization, say somebody is doing a PGDM or an MBA in finance, they are demarked. There's a rigid separation. So somebody who's pursuing finance, of course, they will not be very comfortable with marketing. That's the assumption, and they are not permitted to pursue a course in marketing. There is a complete rigidity here, and we separate all our disciplines. But this NEP talks about developing a multidisciplinary approach. We need to amalgamate all the disciplines. Then the next problem in the current system is that there is limited access, particularly in socio-economically disadvantaged areas. In fact, with few higher education institutions that teach in local languages, there are very limited HEIs which are teaching in local languages. And that is why the students who are living in those areas, living in the rural areas or living in such areas where they are not comfortable with the languages like English or Hindi, then they feel that they are disadvantaged and they cannot pursue education only because of this language barrier. So they are promoting this. NEP says that we need to promote such quality educational institutions, such HEIs who teach in the local language. The next one is that there is limited teacher as well as the institutional autonomy. When we say limited teacher autonomy is that teachers are directed. This is the way you have to teach. These are the books you have to refer. They are not given autonomy. They are not given freedom to prepare, to design their course. They are not given freedom to devise or experiment with new methodologies in the previous system. So if a particular subject, if it's for last say 10 years, a particular course is being taught in a way, it needs to be taught in the similar fashion in the next 10 years as well. That has been the trend in the past. There is very limited autonomy in the hands of the faculty, in the hands of teachers, as well as the institutions. So if we look at from the perspective of affiliate institutes for that matter, they are bound by the curriculum of the university. They are not given autonomy to conduct their examinations. Even if they are capable, they're not permitted to do that. That is why there is a lot of rigidity, and then there is the scope of improvement is very, very high, because when a teacher is given autonomy, when an institution is given autonomy, they can perform to their best possible manner. Their potential can be reaped. Now, another problem in the current education system, the higher education system, is that there are inadequate mechanisms for merit-based career management. Why are we saying this? Because a lot of faculty members, they complain that the CAS, the Career Advancement Scheme in our institute, is not up to the mark. They do not judge us on these parameters, and they are dissatisfied. That is why a lot of teachers, they keep moving from one institution to the other in search of better pay, better environment, better facilities, or more autonomy. So that is the problem with the current higher education system. The next is that there is lesser emphasis on research at most universities and colleges. Now, this is one pain point of India. India, if you look at the research output of our country, it is very, very less. That is why we need to lay a lot of emphasis on research, and then with the introduction of NEP, a lot of I would say importance has been given to research. Why? Because with the change in the 3-year degree bachelor course to converting it to 4 years, the last year, entire 1 year is given to the student to pursue research in a specific area so that it can contribute to the society. Now, when you're doing research, it is not about just writing a PhD degree or obtaining the degree or obtaining an MPhil or PhD. The actual research starts after the completion of your education. Once you're done with your PhD, the real research starts. It's only fulfillment of the bare minimum qualifications as far as PhD is concerned. But there is a complete dearth of good quality research. The research output is very, very minimal if we compare it with the world. The next problem in the current education system is of HEIs. They are not managed properly, they are not governed properly. There are a lot of business establishments who are running the education system as a commercial business. But it is such a noble profession which is not to be commercialized, which needs to be governed in the appropriate manner, and that is why this problem was identified, and a lot of changes have been suggested in NEP 2020. There is ineffective regulation system, and there are large affiliating universities with institutions. There are many universities which are large, they are affiliating universities, and under such universities, very low standards of undergraduate education is provided to the students, because these universities, a lot of institutions get affiliated to these universities. There are universities with more than 150 colleges being affiliated to them. And the quality of teaching which is happening in these colleges, in these HEIs, is not monitored thoroughly, which is resulting in the poor quality, the poor output. Placements are not happening. The internship opportunities are not provided to the students. Why? Because they are not exposed, they are not given exposure, they are not given sufficient good quality education during their 3 years at which they are in the college. So the time which they're spending in the college, the kind of work, the kind of output, the kind of research work, the project work, the practical exposure which should have been, the experiential learning which should have been given to the students, that was not given. Why? Because there is no monitoring agency. The affiliated universities just letting the colleges get affiliated to them, and the universities are not actually strictly monitoring the quality of education being provided at such institutions. So this, if we look at, there were a number of problems, a lot of problems in the higher education system. And with the introduction of this NEP 2020, it actually envisions a complete overhaul and re-energizing of the higher education system to overcome these challenges, these here, and thereby deliver high quality higher education with equity as well as inclusion. So when we say equity, it is gender equity, and inclusion means including the poor as well as the rich. Everybody, there is no demarcation, there is no divide. So NEP 2020 actually visions to move towards a higher educational system consisting of large, multidisciplinary universities and colleges with a medium of instruction or programs in local as well as Indian languages. So it is not only emphasis on English, but as well as on the local languages, even in all the Indian languages. It actually focuses on moving towards a more multidisciplinary undergraduate education, moving towards faculty and institutional autonomy. It is revamping curriculum. It stresses that we need to revamp the curriculum, the pedagogy, the assessment, and student support for enhanced student experiences. Because ultimately, what the student experiences, that is it, that the student, the alumni of that college or HEI is carrying with him or her through his lifetime. And then they are actually building their own career, and then they are building the nation at the longer run. So this new system, it suggests light but very tight regulation by a single regulator for higher education. It also emphasizes on increased access, equity, and inclusion through a range of measures, including greater opportunities for outstanding public education, scholarships by private philanthropic universities for people who are disadvantaged, for all the students who are underprivileged, for online education and open distance learning. And it also emphasizes that all the infrastructure and learning materials are accessible and they are available to the learners with disability. Because there is a big divide right now, the entire system is grappling with these 10 challenges, and that is why there is a need to build good quality universities and colleges. Then we move towards the next one, which is institutional restructuring and consolidation. So when we say restructuring and consolidation, it doesn't mean that we are doing away with the system of having colleges and universities, but we are actually kind of restructuring. The government wants to restructure in the way that things become more organized, things are more transparent, and they are leading to the quality education which every student of this country is entitled to. So the main thrust of this policy regarding higher education is to end the fragmentation of higher education by transforming higher education institutions into large multidisciplinary universities, colleges, and HEIs with at least, I am repeating, with at least 3,000 students. So the category which they have divided is, they say that an HEI, a college, a degree granting college, an autonomous college, a constituent college, or a university, they have to have bare minimum 3,000 students in the institute, and they must offer multidisciplinary education. It has to offer different courses, different programs belonging to, not only restricted to hardcore subjects, in even yoga for that matter, Sanskrit for that matter, your arts, in fact, liberal arts, I would say. So if we look at the definitions of why this sort of restructuring is required, because if we do this sort of restructuring, this is going to help us in building vibrant communities of scholars and peers. It will enable the students to become well-rounded across disciplines, including artistic, creative, and analytic subjects, as well as sports, develop active research communities across disciplines, including cross-disciplinary research, and increase the resource efficiency. So moving to large multidisciplinary universities and HEI clusters is thus, it is the highest recommendation of this policy regarding the structuring of the higher education. If you remember the ancient, as I was just discussing, the Indian universities like Takshila, then Nalanda, even Vikramshila, they had thousands of students at their campus. And not only from India, these students came from abroad, they came from all over the world. And they studied at these universities in vibrant multidisciplinary environments. India must bring back this great Indian tradition to create well-rounded and innovative individuals. It is very, very important that we have the number of students studying in an institution has to be huge. It is not only the number, of course, the infrastructural facilities, the teachers, they all have to be there. But when we have different students coming from multiple areas, from different domains, different regions, that leads to an amalgamation of talent. And that results in better output, better research. So this vision of higher education will require a new conceptual perception, understanding of what constitutes a higher education institution, that is a university or a college. So as for NEP 2020, a university, it will mean a multidisciplinary institution of higher learning that offers undergraduate and postgraduate programs with high quality teaching, research, and community engagement. The definition of university will thus allow a spectrum of institutions that range from those that is equal emphasis on teaching and research, that is research intensive universities, those that place greater emphasis on teaching but still conduct significant research, that is teaching incentive universities. So there are two sorts of universities. One is research intensive and the second category can be intensive universities. Meanwhile, an autonomous degree granting college, it will refer to a large multidisciplinary institution of higher learning that grants undergraduate degrees and is primarily focused on undergraduate teaching, and it would generally be smaller than a typical university. So at the university, we have two categories. Under university, we have research intensive and teaching intensive, and they are promoting undergraduate, graduate, even PhD programs. Whereas an autonomous degree granting college, it is not limiting, but technically they will be offering undergraduate degrees, but again in multidisciplinary domains. But these colleges will be smaller than a typical university. Under this policy, a stage-wise mechanism for granting graded autonomy to colleges through a transparent system of grade accreditation will be established, and colleges will be encouraged, they'll be mentored, they'll be supported and incentivized to gradually become autonomous. They will be promoted, they will be supported, they'll be mentored, they'll be taught that how can they achieve the bare minimum accreditation which is required to become a degree granting college. And once they achieve that benchmark, they'll be given autonomy. So over a period of time, it is envisaged that every college would develop into either a fully autonomous degree granting college, or the third category would be the constituent college of a university. This would actually be a part of the university. It will not be separate from the university, so it will be a constituent college of the university. Now, since this process will take time, all HEIs, they will first have to plan to become multidisciplinary by 2030. So the first target is that you have to offer different programs in different domains. You're not going to restrict the HEI into 1 or 2 or 3 programs only. And then once this multidisciplinary approach is adopted by 2030, the next target is that they gradually increase the student base, the strength. As they said that you have to have at least 3,000 students in your institution. The main aim of NEP 2020 is to increase. The main target is because the gross enrollment ratio right now in higher education, or if I talk about 4 years ago, way back in 2018, the gross enrollment ratio was just 26.3%. So out of 100, only 26 students were actually going in for higher education. That is the enrollment ratio. They were not even competing, they were just enrolling in the programs. And the government aims to increase this GER, the gross enrollment ratio, from 26.3% to 50% by 2035, which is a big target the government has taken up, but then with these changes being introduced is likely to achieve. The overall higher education sector will aim to be an integrated higher education system, including professional and vocational education. This policy and its approach will be equally applicable to all the HEIs across all streams, which would eventually merge into one coherent ecosystem of higher education. The present complex nomenclature, because right now if you see, we get confused, private university, state university, deemed to be university, affiliating technical universities. There are different names, unitary university. All these names, these nomenclatures will go away. They all will be replaced by just one word, that is university, once they fulfill the criteria as per the norms of the government. So once they fulfill, they are going to be given the status of a university, and all the other nomenclatures will go away. So with this, we've discussed the institutional restructuring and consolidation. Holistic and multidisciplinary, as we have been discussing, that you need to cater to different disciplines. Let us focus on the word holistic here. India has a long tradition of holistic and multidisciplinary learning, as I was saying, that in earlier universities it used to happen. So holistic and multidisciplinary education would aim to develop all capacities of human beings, whether it is intellectual, aesthetic, social, physical, emotional, as well as moral, in an integrated manner. So it is not only your intellectual capacity, it is not only your cognitive ability to write answers. There is no more rote learning now. It is the development. It is holistic development in an integrated manner where the student is exposed, is given exposure, not only in the curriculum, is not only taught about the subject, but is also made to do the exercises which he's studying. The practical exposure is provided. He or she is groomed on the value system. They are exposed to the importance of having good health. All of that will be inculcated in the students through the new system. Now, such an education will help develop well-rounded individuals that possess critical 21st century capacities in fields across the arts, humanities, languages, sciences, social sciences, and professional, technical, and vocational fields. An ethic of social engagement, soft skills these days. There's a lot of emphasis on soft skills like communication skills, discussions, debates. So every institution is these days organizing such things, and rigorous specialization in a chosen field or fields. So we are focusing on two aspects, the hard skills as well as the soft skills. So a holistic education has to be there in the long run, and that should be the norm for all the undergraduate programs, including those in professional, technical, and vocational disciplines. There is no demarcation now. Everyone who's pursuing any course after 12th, they have to be exposed at the undergraduate level in the long run. Their intellectual, aesthetic, social, physical, emotional, moral, every aspect of them should be developed. Even engineering institutions like your IITs, they will move towards more holistic and multidisciplinary education, because the moment we think of engineering, it's the IITs which come into our mind. So they will also not get restricted just to engineering domain. They will also incorporate more of arts, more of humanities. Students of arts and humanities will aim to learn more science and will make an effort to incorporate more vocational subjects and soft skills. The pedagogy will have to be, it has to be increased at a level on communication, on discussion, debate, research, and opportunities for cross-disciplinary and interdisciplinary thinking. They must be provided towards the attainment of a holistic and
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt, ma'am. Your voice is breaking, ma'am.
service, because this is very important. We actually, when we do business, we only think of profit. Their objective is,
Ma'am,
yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. I think there is some network disturbance, ma'am. Voice is breaking.
Okay, so ma'am, I'll just change the network. Just give me a second. I'll just change the network so that there is no disturbance.
No issues, ma'am. No issues.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am. You're audible, ma'am.
Okay, okay. So I'll just share the screen. Right, again. One second.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I hope my screen is visible. So we were discussing about the holistic and multidisciplinary education. So if we look at the revamp which has been suggested by NEP, the structure and lengths of degree programs shall also be adjusted. And there has been a lot of discussion on it. The undergraduate degree will now either be 3 or 4 years of duration with multiple exit options within this period with appropriate certifications. So the first level, if a student completes 1 year, he or she will be granted a certificate. Then after completion of second year, it is going to be diploma. The third year, it will be a bachelor's degree. And the 4-year multidisciplinary bachelor's program, however, shall be the preferred option because it will allow the opportunity to experience the full range of holistic and multidisciplinary education, in addition to the focus on chosen area of research. So they are integrating 3 years of normal education and the fourth year being completely focused on research. An academic bank of credit will also be established. We all know that academic bank of credit, the short form is ABC. So the academic bank of credit shall be established, which would digitally store the academic credits earned from various recognized HEIs so that the degrees from an HEI can be awarded taking into the accounts the credits earned by pursuing a different course, by pursuing a course from some other university, by pursuing an online course so that the credits can be accumulated and they can be transferred. The 4-year program may also lead to a degree with research if the student completes one rigorous research project in their major areas of studies. HEIs will have the flexibility to offer different designs of master's program. The new NEP has discontinued the MPhil degree. They have also suggested creation of model public universities, and there is a suggestion of starting up of the incubation centers to promote entrepreneurship so that the students, they get facilitated and they can create their own organizations. There is emphasis on setting up of technology development centers, centers in front areas of research. The NEP policy also says that the industry, an academic institution cannot work in isolation. It needs to develop more linkages with the industry. And towards the end, they are saying that even if you're pursuing research, the research has to be interdisciplinary in nature, or it has to be multidisciplinary in nature. So if somebody who is specializing in the area of marketing or is specializing in the area of technology, they need to understand that what benefit can I give back to the society by doing this research? Is this the concept which is being developed as a part of my research, the solution which I am providing, is this solution providing any help to the society to solve the problems existing in the society? So it has to have a holistic approach of looking at things, and then the research which is being pursued should also be interdisciplinary in nature. The next is optimal learning environment and support. So when we say optimal learning environment, we're talking from the perspective of the students, that the students must be provided with the appropriate curriculum. The pedagogy which is being adopted to teach them, it should be engaging, it should be enriching, it should be involving, and it should not be one-sided. It should be there. The students must be evaluated on the basis of continuous formative assessment, something which is being assessed on a regular basis. It is not just midterms and finals. It should not be just end terms and the final exams. It should be continuous in nature, and adequate student support should be provided. So if a student requires any help in terms of mentoring, there must be a mentor available at the institution. If there are psychiatric issues, there must be a psychologist who is available at the campus. So this NEP says that the curriculum must be interesting and relevant. It must be updated regularly to align with the latest knowledge and requirements and to meet specified learning outcomes. The high quality pedagogy is then seen necessary to successfully impart the curriculum material to students. So first, the curriculum needs to be good. It needs to be updated as per the demands of the industry. It should not be outdated. Then the methods, the pedagogy, the mechanism to deliver that curriculum, it should be updated. It should be so that the students feel engaged, the students find the class to be very, very interesting. And the assessment methods which are being used, they must be scientific. They must be designed to continuously improve learning and test the application of knowledge. Last but not the least, the last of all, the development of capacities that promote student wellness, such as the fitness, such as good health, such as the psychosocial well-being, the sound ethical grounding, the values, the traditions the ethics which we are giving to the students. They all should be provided to the students, and they are the cornerstones for quality learning. Along with providing the suitable resources and the infrastructure such as libraries, the classrooms, you have labs, technology, you have sports facilities in the campus, the recreation areas, the girls' common room, boys' common room, discussion areas, the dining areas, cafeteria, all of these, they have to be there. The entire environment, it has to be supportive. The hostel facilities which is provided by the HEI, they all have to be supportive, engaging, so that the students can actually feel that even if they are living alone away from the parents, if there's an outstation student, they do not feel alone. They feel that, yes, this entire campus is the people living here, they are my family, this campus is my home. That should be the kind of environment, an optimal learning environment, which needs to be provided to the students. The choice-based credit system, CBCS, that needs to be revised under this policy for instilling innovation and flexibilities. The higher education institutions, they shall move to a criterion-based grading system that assesses student achievement based on the learning goals for each program, making the system fairer and outcomes more comparable. So overall, if we look at this specific point, the government, the emphasis of NEP is that you provide such an environment that the student, even an average student, he or she rises to the top level. Even when we are talking about providing exposure to the students, it is also about giving them exposure of not only your specific campus. So the HEI needs to collaborate from the HEIs of other states, from other countries as well. So a regulatory framework will be in place wherein collaborations can be held, the MOUs can be signed, but through the single-handed regulatory body, which will approve that, yes, this MOU is going to benefit. So there will be faculty exchange, student exchange, even for research work, this sort of environment will be provided under the NEP 2020. The next point which we have is related to faculty. So it actually relates to all of us. That when we go to the classroom, we find the faculty to be motivated, to be energized, and they are really capable. We all know that we actually prepare a lot before we go for the class. But the way students look at us, the way they analyze, their perspective is completely different. So to hire such faculty, to keep them motivated, to keep them energized, to keep them incentivized. A lot of pointers have been given under the NEP. So because why there is a lot of emphasis on faculty? Because the most important factor in the success of higher education institutions, it's the quality and engagement of its faculty. It is an institution is nothing without its faculty. An institution is always known because of the faculty it or the institution actually recruits. And the faculty which stays for long with an institution actually talks about the quality of environment which is provided to the faculty members. So acknowledging the criticality, the importance of faculty in achieving the goals of higher education, various initiatives have been introduced in the past several years to systemize the recruitment and career progression and to ensure equitable representation from various groups in the hiring of faculty. Though there is a lot of scope for improvement, there is still a lot of disparity when it comes to pay, there is a lot of problem, and many of the faculty members, they feel humiliated, they feel exploited. So to do away with these things, there are various steps which have been taken up, which have been proposed under NEP 2020. As the most basic step, all the HEIs, all the higher education institutions, they will be equipped with the basic infrastructure and facilities, including clean drinking water, because that is also a challenge these days. If your health is not okay, how will you perform? Clean working toilets, blackboards, offices, teaching supplies, libraries, labs, and pleasant classroom spaces and campuses. That is from the perspective of having the infrastructure. That's the basic bare minimum infrastructure which should be provided not only to the students but to our faculty as well. To help the faculty perform, they also need appropriate environment, a conducive environment, a good classroom. Every classroom shall have the access to the latest educational technology. When we say latest educational technology, at least a basic Wi-Fi, a LAN connection should be there. That not too high, so that the activity of teaching, here we can say that enables, because you have good connectivity, that will help you enable better learning experience as well. The teaching duties of the faculty will also be reduced. They will not be too excessive. The teacher-student ratio has to be healthy, so that every faculty, every teacher can address the limited number of students and they can give personal attention to the students. But if you have to handle say a class of 100 students at one point in time, and every 100, it's difficult to address the student of each and every student, the issue of each and every student. So that is why it is proposed that there has to be healthy student-teacher ratio. The teachers will be given autonomy to discuss. They will be given autonomy to design their course. They will be given autonomy to even decide where do they want to take the lectures. I know there are many institutions which permit the faculty and say that if you want to take the class in the garden, take the students to the garden and teach them. We have seen there are a lot of Bollywood movies, if you see, which are promoting, which are telling that there is a dire need not to restrict the environment, because when you provide the students an open environment, the learning is better. So you should not be restricted as faculty members, and NEP proposes that autonomy, freedom should be given to the faculty members in terms of the tools they want to use, the kind of course they want to design, the way they want to deliver, the duration in which they want to deliver the classes. Such autonomy should be provided. Then talking about the promotions and the career advancement, appropriate rewards, promotions, recognitions, and movement into institutional leadership shall be provided under the NEP, under the fast track promotion system, because they want to recognize the teachers with high impact research and contribution. They will be promoted under the fast track promotion system. The next we have is equity and inclusion in higher education. When we say equity and inclusion in higher education, it is equitable access to quality education to all the students, with a special emphasis on socio-economically disadvantaged groups, that is SEDG. Now, this specific group of students, they actually are the ones who do not get access to good quality education. They are not even provided the bare minimum, forget about the quality. So NEP 2020 envisions ensuring equitable access to quality education to all students, especially with an emphasis on SEDGs, the dynamics, and also many of the reasons for exclusion of SEDGs from the education system. They are common across school and higher education sectors. Therefore, the approach to equity and inclusion must be common, and it must be the reform which is suggested, it should be a sustainable one. There are many phases of exclusion that are particular to or substantially more intense in higher education. They somehow, the people belonging, the students coming from SEDGs back, they may sustain, they may survive, they may manage to get the school education, but when it comes to higher education level, they are completely disadvantaged. They are not provided access to classrooms. They are not provided. There's a lot of bifurcation. That sometimes they do not have sufficient funds. Sometimes they do not have sufficient knowledge. There is nobody to counsel them. Nobody's even tells them that these are the opportunities which you can explore. These are the scholarship schemes which you can obtain. So there are a lot of steps which are to be taken from the perspective of both the government as well as the higher education institutions. So from the government side, governments they have to earmark suitable funds for the education of such group of people. They have to set clear targets for higher gross enrollment ratios and ensure that these students get access to the higher education. The steps which can be taken up or which are to be taken up by the higher education institutions, they include to mitigate the opportunity cost and fees for pursuing higher education, provide more financial assistance to such students, provide more scholarships to such students, and strictly enforce no discrimination and anti-harassment rules. They must be implemented at the HEI levels. So this is about equity and inclusion. And the last topic for today's session is the teacher education. That is why and how, and it is important that the teacher needs to be educated. We need to raise the bar, we need to raise the standards. So teacher preparation is an activity that requires multidisciplinary perspectives and knowledge, formation of dispositions and values, and development of practice under the best mentors. So all the teacher education institutions, they have to emphasize on the way they are teaching. If you look at the pandemic period, I'm just giving you one statistic. If you look at the pandemic period, that is 2020 to 2021, almost 40,000 PhD degrees were granted. So that means if 40,000 PhD degrees are granted, that means that if one degree is able to solve one problem of the society, so 40,000 problems actually got solved during 2020-21. But that is actually not the case. So we have to raise the standards, the way teachers get educated, the way degrees are procured by them, the way they get their BEds, the way they get their PhDs. There have to be a lot of restrictions. There have to be, the standards have to be set in terms of restoring integrity, in terms of restoring quality. And the government has suggested that the pedagogy, the writing, the teaching work, which is being done during the coursework, that needs to be stressed upon, that needs to be improved. So we need to have good quality teachers, because if the teachers are of good quality, automatically the delivery, the pedagogy, the content which will be delivered will be good, and ultimately the students will benefit out of it. So we'll be able, from good teachers, education, good education of the teacher comes to the quality of the students as well. So with this, I end my session. Thank you so much all for your patient listening. If you have queries, if you have questions, I'm open for discussion.
The session is open for discussion now. You can post the queries in the chat box, or you can unmute and interact with the resource person. Thank you all. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Please post your questions in the chat box. I'll read it to ma'am. She's there to help you. Please post your questions.
Please post your questions. You can unmute and interact with ma'am, or you can post your queries in the chat box also. I'll read it to ma'am. She's there to help you.
Okay, if you do not have a question, then let me ask the question. You all can raise your hands if you all think that the changes which have been suggested by NEP 2020 will actually lead to remarkable change in the higher education sector. And we as faculty members, we as teachers will also benefit out of it. How many of you feel that? Please raise your hands. If you agree to the measures which have been suggested in NEP, please raise your hands. Okay, so I can see a few hands being raised. That's great. So you feel that, yes, this NEP was a much needed measure which has been proposed by the government, and it is likely to benefit not only us as faculty members, but the students and the entire higher education system in India. And I hope that India becomes once again the Vishwa Guru as it used to be known as earlier.
Any questions?
So I'll be happy to assist in case you have questions. You can drop them to ma'am as well. Ma'am can mail me these questions. I'll be happy to answer.
Sure, ma'am. You can post in chat box also. I'll read it to ma'am. Any questions? Please post it in chat box.
Right. So thank you all. It was my pleasure being here. I can read the comments. People are writing. Thanks. So I thank you for being there as the audience, being the participants. I hope you learn more tomorrow. We have another session tomorrow.
Any questions? I think there are no questions from their side, ma'am. So shall we wind up, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. It seems there are no questions.
Yes. On behalf of IOT Academy, I thank Dr. Isha Raval, ma'am, for the very enlightening and enriching session, ma'am. And we thank you once again for this amazing presentation. And thank you very much for your efforts, ma'am. Your session on national education policy will be very fruitful and beneficial, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thanks for your efforts, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was my pleasure being here. Thank you so much. Thanks to the participants. Thanks to the organizer. Thanks.
You're welcome, ma'am. I thank all the participants for joining the session today. Kindly fill the feedback form using the link that's been posted in the chat box. Thank you all. Thank you very much, ma'am. Please post the feedback using the link that has been posted in the chat box. Thank you all. Have a great day. Thanks for joining the session today. Thank you all.